Hey y'all, welcome back to Homestead in the City. I'm Zach, and today we're going on another Christmas Day tour of our garden. So we're starting at the top of the hill back of the yard at our chicken run area. These are the chickens that we did not have last Christmas, but we got them in the spring, and they're loving life. They're living in their chicken tunnel, which we've had to kind of upgrade with some more fencing. Because of Percival. He likes to get in here and mess with them, but the protection from the hawks is still the same. Got these evergreen branches of mostly cherry-laurel that we have bent over and created a thick hedge of protection. And Percy sees something. What is it, Percy? Is there another dog next door? So the chickens are molting right now. We haven't gotten a lot of eggs lately because of the winter. Days are getting shorter and they need a break. And so all those feathers, the leaves, their poop, food scraps, everything, it gets raked into these compost piles. It'll age there. We'll flip it. They'll scratch through it. It'll be really great compost. And that's what we put into the rest of the garden. So yeah, one of the other things I do is take all the charcoal from our fire pit and put it down here under the trees where they stay, and they poop down into the charcoal that absorbs the odor, and that also gets put into the compost and becomes some good biochar. Now, right outside of the chicken run area, we've got our food forest. Right here, I have some of that old cherry-laurel from else in the yard that I chopped down and cut up and have used in our fire pit over here when we've had guests over. And this is that charcoal production that I was talking about. Biochar doesn't have to be complicated. It really can be as easy as just taking the leftovers from your fire, putting it in your compost pit, and waiting for a while. Anyways, elsewhere in the food forest, it is mostly dormant for the winter, but we'll go over some of the fruit trees that we've got in here. The plum tree from Doco Farm, we've lost all our leaves, but we've got some growth. It's definitely taller than me now. This is the loquat that has been featured in the last two Christmas tours. I think in 2022, it was over in our orchard area, and it was about, maybe 6 inches or so, a little bit bigger than my hand. And then last year, I think we were about this tall, like maybe waist height. And now this loquat is also taller than me. Also in here, we've got our persimmon. It's lost all of its leaves. Our mulberry, that was really small. It put off a ton of growth this year. I think this is one of our chestnuts. We're gonna see if it hangs on. Got a little banana in here. A couple other things trying to get going on. The cherry laurels, we did actually harvest some of that, you can see from where they were pollarded. So we cut back some of the growth on that and wove that into this wattle fencing that is protecting that chicken run area from Percy. So that is the food forest area. And of course, the next step from the food forest in is our orchard area. This is our 7-row orchard. We've got 3 up against the house, or 4 up against the house, 3 over here by the greenhouse. And they are all fed by our mulch delivery system. And that is where I just bring tons and tons of wagons of mulch from the front yard, pile them up here. Percy loves to dig them. They get thrown downhill, they break down, they mix in with the sand, they compost down, and they start building some really good soil. And you can kind of see here where Percy is dug down about to the level of the yard, and then what's been added, what is addition. And you can even see some of these logs that are now well underground. If you look back at some of our old tours from Christmas 2022 so you'll see them all just kind of sitting on top. So that's how much the soil has been built up by these wood chips that were broken down. And yeah, it's looking like some good stuff. Let's go through the rows real quick. So row 1 is right up here by my patio. I'll also show you this garlic. This garlic was just an old fire pit. I filled it up with compost, so it is gonna be very well draining. It's right under my roof line, so when it rains, we get a lot of water on it. And then I may need to supplementally water, but I've got some garlic and I think maybe some ginger in there. Yeah, row 1, I think I am going to try to get some more bananas going like I have over in row 5. My blueberry that was here, it held on for about a year or so, and it did not make it this year. I think just from Percy digging so much material that piled up here, it probably girdled the plant, which is when you get too much mulch built up like around its trunk or stalk, and that just kills off the plant. But we have found the bananas are a plant that can handle more of that mulching up around the base. So they loved it over there. We'll see more in a second. And I think I'm gonna do a little bit more here. And then that also just kind of makes a barrier between the rest of the orchard area and like our patio. All right, and in row 2, one of the things, we've got this fig tree that has been doing pretty good. I think last year, or maybe 2 years ago, I put it in the ground as a stick about that big, and it held on, put off roots and leaves for the next year and established. And then this year, it even put off some growth. So we'll see how it turns out next year. Then moving on from that, this is our quarter-acre orange tree. This is one, we've had a couple freezes this year already, and it's hanging on pretty good. So might try to do more of those. And then this is Red Haven peach, first of our 7 peach trees that we'll see. And this is one of the ones that still has leaves on it. And then at the end, I have one of my apples or pears. I can't remember the order that I put everything in. I'd have to go look at my notes. Row 3, I've got another citrus, an Owari Satsuma mandarin, I believe. It's my second peach tree. It's already lost its leaves. This is the, which one? Reliance. But put off roots and leaves this year, established pretty well. Hopefully we'll get a little bit of fruit. And we have an elderberry plant capping the end of row 3. Row 4, this is a big cherry-laurel. And last year, I believe I cut off this big branch, so it looked like this guy. And then over the course of this year, it has put off all of that new growth. And so just a couple weeks ago, I cut off this one, so it should start doing the same. And then we should get a good rotation. So next year, I'll probably harvest all of this off. We'll use it in fencing and stuff. And then we'll let this grow a year or two and just keep that rotation going. And one of the reasons why I waited was because this is the south side of our house. And in the summer, we wanted to have a lot of shade to help keep it cooler. But now that it's cold, we want more sunlight to hit here and help warm up our house. And elsewhere in row 4, we've got a big banana that has done well being at the bottom of the hill. You can kind of tell here where everything runs this way. We of course have that chicken run at the top of the hill, and then the mulch that Percy kicks down. It all comes down to this spot, and by the time it gets down here, it's breaking down good. And there's a ton of nutrients, which I think the banana tree is loving. And then, of course, our biggest peach tree, we're gonna start taking some cuttings from this year, I think, and trying to grow some new ones. But this has been in about 6 months to a year longer than all the rest. So we did get a few peaches off of this one this year. And, of course, another elderberry. All right, row 5, like I said, the bananas did really well. Percy, of course, is digging from here, piles it up there, and so it killed off the other things, the persimmons and apples that were in this row. So we lost them, but the bananas are loving it. Row 6, over here we've got our grapevine that is going along this power line that I have going out to the greenhouse, and that is also partially being held up by this mulberry tree and some more elderberry, of course. And then we've also got in the very center another plum tree, and this one still has a few leaves. Then on the other end, I've got my Arkansas black apple tree and yet more elderberry. Finally, row 7. This is probably our most diverse row. I've got a lot of stuff in the ground. I've got onions. We have some strawberries in here somewhere, I believe. Yes, here are some of our strawberries. Just more onion. This is, I believe, an apple tree that I'm working on doing kind of an espalier method in the orchard to keep that thin and tidy. And then over here, doing the same with this pear tree. And so we are just training them to essentially grow in a 2D fashion to make it easier to come walk between these rows. We may end up doing that with some of the other trees, but these are kind of just our test subjects. Oh, and then that kale plant y'all have seen, this has been in the ground since May of 2023. I just harvested some this week for a salad, but we'll see how much it bounces back. At the bottom of the hill, we've got the fountain pond area, and this has definitely changed over the years. I think Christmas 2022, it was almost completely frozen, and there really wasn't a lot of life around it. And last year we had a little bit more greenery, and this year you're kind of seeing where things are really filling in. But this, of course, has our fish in it. It was probably our first pond, really, where we got it dug out, resealed, and fixed up with a little aquarium pump. And that has just been going well ever since then. We've got some of these pots down in the pond, and they're growing plants. We've had these elderberries growing in them for a while. We've got milkweed and mint and different things. We've got, oh yeah, here's some more of my garlic plants. We're gonna see how well they do here. But this kind of works as a hydroponic setup or aquaponic setup too. We've got watercress growing in there. We try to root other things in. This actually, I think this is an elderberry that's just been rooting in here for maybe 2 years now. And right beside the fountain pond, we've got our greenhouse. Right now, I decided to take this little window and put it over one of our earth boxes. I'm gonna try to grow some cilantro, and we've got some green onion in there. We'll see how that goes. And then actually inside the greenhouse itself, before we get in there, we've got our solar panels. We've got some of our K&F fertilizer that's been fermenting since summer. My new solar oven that I'm testing out for cooking without power. And then in the greenhouse itself, this year I decided to bring in a little heat lamp so that I can heat up like my peppers, avocados, my compost tea, and keep it warmer in here. And we actually were able to harvest some greens for a salad the other night for Christmas Eve. We've got our earth boxes in here, got a Meyer lemon tree, got tomatoes that are red on Christmas Day, just growing in this compost tea. So love our greenhouse. Also have a chair in here because I love to sit and listen to a podcast or read a book. Oh yeah, these green stalks are filled with some of that compost from out here. They started off as wood chips. One of the things that we had was mushrooms that were growing along here, and those mushrooms really broke down the wood chips well. So I took some of that mushroom compost, some of the other wood chips from around here, some of the compost from up in the chicken run. I sifted those and mixed them up real well, and I think I used this little grate to kind of sift them out. Then put them in the containers there, and I will water them with some of this compost tea, and so far everything is loving life. Percy, you want to play? Percy, we're shooting a tour. We got to show everyone around the garden. And past the greenhouse, I think this happened from Hurricane Helene this fall, but I'm where the branch kind of fell over. I mentioned if I just kind of keep cutting it like that, we're gonna be making a tunnel, don't mind that big mess, back here by the greenhouse. It's quiet right now, but this is Percy's original pond at the bottom of the hill. We've gotten the side yard trimmed up some. We've got our Meyer lemon and lime tree over there. Got our muscadine that, you know, started off as a little twig like this and is now growing up into a pretty healthy vine. We got a little bit of muscadines this year, and hopefully next summer we'll get a lot. I know. Right in the front yard up by the house, we've got the fig tree in our memorial garden. I've pruned that up for the winter. And then right in front of that, we've got our metal raised beds. And those are some of the newer additions. I did put some plants in them from the farmer's market. I don't think I got them in early enough to really get established before we had our biggest freezes. So we lost pretty much all of that. I did put down some more garlic in it more recently. We'll see if that pops up. But definitely in the spring, we plan to have lots of probably peppers, tomatoes, and maybe some other stuff in these beds. And it'll be the first year that we have really done a lot in them. Oh, and then also something about the pathways between these beds. I was inspired by Hugh Richards in Wales to use these pathways as compost areas. So what I did was over last summer, chopped and dropped stuff, let things compost here. Then when we put these beds in, I just put the compost material and wood chips and everything that were in these paths in the beds to help fill them up. Then we took some of the aged wood chips that we'll see in a second, and we replaced them here. And so these will compost down even more next summer. And we got those wood chips from this mulch delivery area, and it is, I put it where the gas main comes into our property because we couldn't plant stuff here anyways, and we knew that we wanted to get lots of wood chips to help build fertility. So this is pile number 14, I believe. We put the wood chip delivery driveway on the opposite side of the front yard as our car driveway. That way we can get them delivered and not be in a super rush to get them moved on out. And because as we keep building things up, those bottom earliest layers are going to break down into the best stuff. And then you can see as they get less and less aged and more fresh, that's what's going to be on top. And so actually this whole hill over here is an example of that, because this used to be a pile of these trees that were brought in with the second delivery of mulch. And that used to be about eye level with me. And now it doesn't come up to my knee. And we've got a hill with what were some raised beds on top with garlic. Decided to even put another layer of mulch up in between those raised beds to level those off, pulled the beds out, so now we just have some in-ground beds growing more garlic on top of this hill, as well as a cool wind sculpture that I got for winning a photo contest. So then what I did with those raised beds that were on top of the hill is move them down here. And what I'll do with that this spring is fill them with different herbs and stuff that neighbors could come, like as they're walking their dogs down the street, just pop in, cut some basil, green onion, whatever they need for dinner, and maybe learn a little bit about gardening or get inspired themselves. Of course, along the driveway, we've got our floodwater management beds and peach trees. And last year they were a lot greener at this time of year. I think I put mustard greens in the ground a lot earlier in the year, in like maybe October or so. They had enough time to sprout up and really take hold and make it through the winter. This year we had, I think I planted later and we had some earlier frosts, so they did not make it through the early frost. But we did mulch it with some of the leaves from our cypress tree right here. So you can see that's gonna mulch it well. And of course, these are the beds that are dug down from the level of the driveway so that we can catch all that water before it goes downhill. And I think it's been good for the trees because it's Christmas Day and these peach trees still have leaves on them. They're pretty close to falling off. They'll come off easily, but they've still got some leaves. I think this is a little blackberry or raspberry that has held on in the berry hedge. But that's about the only thing. That is still the biggest work in progress. I might come take out this wattle fence in the spring and kind of revamp this area. That's all I got for today. Y'all have a Merry Christmas and see you in 2025.